Having been in education for over 34 years, ending up as an assistant superintendent with our county office of education, I've had the opportunity to witness a very broad spectrum of our educational system, working with special ed students, working with adult learners, working with at-risk youth, as well as regular students. One of the major challenges I see today is that students are treated very frequently like each one is the same kind of learner, that one approach is going to pretty much meet the need of all students. And if it doesn't, why, it must be the student's fault. This is not true. This is something that education has consistently failed to recognize. Not all educators. I don't want to paint too broad a stroke, but many educators just don't seem to recognize or have the freedom to individualize education enough to meet the needs of the variety of learners that we run into in our educational system. Right now, probably about 20% of students do incredibly well with the system as it is. The other 80% do not reach their potential. And that's because we don't individualize and recognize the uniqueness of their learning needs, their interests, their experiences. We tend, as I said earlier, to use that one-size-fits-all approach. When parents try to advocate for students, frequently they're told, well, your son or daughter's doing fine. You know, don't worry about it. If they just worked a little harder, they would excel. Well, that's not the solution. The solution is, let's look at every learner as a unique learner. Let's deal with them uniquely. And let's listen to parents who are trying to advocate for their sons and daughters. I can't encourage parents enough to be advocates for their child. There's nobody who's advocating for them or knows them as well as the parent. It's not to be unrealistic. It's not to say that every child is a genius and that they're going to just tear up the educational system, but every child has gifts. And our obligation, our moral obligation as educators, is to recognize those gifts, to uncover those gifts, and to encourage the student to excel in those areas where they have the greatest interest and abilities.
What is the desired result that we would all like from education? That is the question. We need people who are able to step up to the challenges, to meet employer expectations, to learn on their own, to step up to responsibility and not have to be closely supervised all the time. We need people who are able to not make errors, to do things right the first time. These things don't happen automatically. They happen when a school system has produced people who are basically in love with learning. I don't know how else to say it. They want to be lifelong learners because they see the value and they have had the rewarding experiences of learning that make them, I have no better word for it, make them become lifelong learners.